We begin the Gemara today on the Daf Yutes, the first word right in the beginning of the Amud. It's the middle of a subject. It's discussing a machlokes in the end of the previous Amud between Rav and Rab Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shua ben Levi regarding Megillas Tainus. Megillas Tainus has in it a lot of different dates of Nisim that happened to the Yidden in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, and they established it as Yomim Tovim. And the point was that you shouldn't fast, no hesped on that day. So the question is whether those dates that are written in Megillas Tainus are still relevant and kept today or not, or it was bottled. So there was a machlokes. So the Gemara brought regarding Gimel Tishrei. One of the dates written there is that Gimel Tishrei was a date that they established as a yontif because they were successful in bringing Klal Yisrael not to write the Eibish's name in Shtaris. The Eibish's name was written in Shtaris and they were throwing it in the garbage, and they were successful in removing that. So that they established it as a yontif. So the Gemara says that this story, this incident, must have happened in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Because if it happened after the time of the Beis HaMikdash, then according to Rav and Rav Chanina, at that point the whole Megillas Tainus was bottled already. They wouldn't add another date if it was already bottled. So the Gemara continues discussing this. Now, what are you telling me? That this incident happened in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, right? So if so, the Havala Yom Shenereg Boy Gedalia ben Achikam. So why did they have to establish Gimel Tishrei as a yontif because of this incident with the Shtaris that happened? Why shouldn't it be a yontif for the very fact that it's the day that Gedalia ben Achikam was killed? We had before, in the beginning of the previous Amud, it said that there's the Tzayim Maravi, Tzayim Chamishi, Tzayim Ashvi, Tzayim Asirim. What did it say in the Pasuk? That when the Beis HaMikdash is standing, all of those dates are Sasim v'Simcha. They are dates that they established like a yontif. After the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed, then they're fast days. So if this story happened at the time of the Beis HaMikdash, so all of these days, including this day, Gedalia ben Achikam was killed on Gimel Tishrei, that's the Tzayim Ashvi, that's a day of a celebration of a yontif. So what did they have to establish it as a yontif? So the Gemara answers, Amarav, or others say Amarave, Lo nitzracha ella lesa shelafonov. The chiddush of those days that are written in Megillas Tainus is that not only you don't fast on that day which they established as a yontif, but you also don't fast before and after. So over here, they establish it as a yontif that you shouldn't fast before. But even that they shouldn't fast before, Nami, what's the day before? The day before is Beis Tishrei, the day after Rosh Hashanah, or really the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Shalafonov Nami, typically the Havale, Yoim, Shala'achar Chodesh. It's a day after Rosh Chodesh. One of the things written in Megillas Tainus is that you don't fast on Rosh Chodesh, and you don't fast not the day before Rosh Chodesh, and not the day after Rosh Chodesh. All the dates that are mentioned in Megillas Tainus, you can't fast not a day before, not a day after. So Beis Tishrei is the day after Rosh Chodesh. Right? So it's interesting. The Gemara ignores the fact that it's Rosh Hashanah. In other words, the fact that it's Rosh Hashanah, you don't have to. You would be allowed to fast. That's what it's mashmir in the Gemara. But the fact that it's Rosh Chodesh, so you're not allowed to fast on Rosh Chodesh, and you're not allowed to fast the day after Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, it can't be that they established this as a yomtiv for the day before. So the Gemara says, no. Again, typically the Havala Yom Shala'achar Rosh Chodesh, it's the day after Rosh Chodesh. The Gemara answers, Rosh Chodesh da Iraisa. The concept of Rosh Chodesh being a second day, a special day that you see in the Torah. And Udairaisa loy boy chizuk. Regarding those days that are special min ha-Torah, you're only not allowed to fast on that day itself, but not the day before and not the day after. As the Gemara here brings a braisa, the Tanya, we learned in a braisa, Hayamim me'ele haksuvim b'Megillas Tainus. These days that are mentioned in Megillas Tainus that you shouldn't fast on them, they're a yontif, asurin ben lifneim ben lachreim. It means you're also not allowed to fast the day before and the day after. However, Shabbos is v'yamim tovim, when it comes to Shabbos and yontif, heim asurim, you're not allowed to fast on Shabbos or yontif, but lifneim or lachreim mutarin. But the day before Shabbos or the day after Shabbos, they're allowed. So the Braisa explains what's the difference. Ma'afish ben zelazeh. Halalu divrei Torah. Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, which are special days mentioned in the Torah, so therefore ve'ein divrei Torah tzrich chizuk. Being special days in the Torah, so they don't need additional strengthening. So therefore you can fast the day before or after. But halalu divrei seifrim. Then there are the other dates mentioned in Megillas Tainus that the Chachamim then established. So tzrich chizuk. So therefore, it has to be strengthened, and therefore they said that you shouldn't fast the day before or after. So therefore, Gimel Tishrei, mitzad the fact that it's the day after, the day before Gimel Tishrei, that is, Beis Tishrei, mitzad the day that it's the day after Rosh Chodesh, you would be allowed to fast. So therefore, they established it as a yontif so that now it's something which is midrabanan, and therefore you're not allowed to fast the day before. But the Gemara asks, this is still not a good answer. Going back to the same question before. If this is the day that Gedaliah ben Achikim was killed, and in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, midrabanan, they established that as a Yom Tiv. All the fasts in the time of the Beis HaMikdash are Sasa v'Simcha, right? So this is midrabanan. So the day before that, you should not be allowed to fast. So again, the question still remains, why do they have to establish this for a Yom Tiv, for a new incident, if mitzad the fact that it's a day that Gedaliah was killed, you can't fast on the day itself or the day before, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. It's Sasa v'Simcha. Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi answers, Gedaliah ben Achikim, the day that Gedaliah ben Achikim was killed, divrei kabbalahu. The fact that it's considered to be a yontif, you learn from the pasuk, as it says in the pasuk, Sasim v'Simcha. The divrei kabbalah ke divrei Torah. Things that are written in the pasuk and Navi, that's what divrei kabbalah means. The words of a Navi is as strong as the words that are written in the Torah, and therefore, just like we said before, that regarding divrei Torah, you're allowed to fast the day before because it needs no chizuk. It's the same thing with divrei kabbalah. So therefore, they established it as a yontif to add that you shouldn't be allowed to fast the day before. The story of Hanami, but it's mentioned in Navi. This is a pasuk. Where is it? In Zechariah? Yeah, it's a pasuk in Zechariah. So it's considered to be divrei kabbalah. So in the previous Amud, it brings the pasuk of Sasim v'Simcha, that it's so that's mentioned in Navi. So therefore, it's like divrei Torah. The Gemara has another question on the opinion that says that Megillas Tainus was bottled. Must have Rav Tovi Bar Masna. Rav Tovi Bar Masna asked, and here he brings something else that's written in Megillas Tainus. So it says there as follows: Be'esrim utmanya bey, on the 28th day in it, which is referring to the month of Adar, Oster besurte tovele yudoi. There was a good news came to the Yidden, which is the lo yidun me'araisa. They do not have to turn away from the Torah. And the Megillas Tainus there says the story. There was a gzeira that was made, that the Yidden are not allowed to occupy themselves learning Torah, not to make a bris for their children, and that they should be desecrating Shabbos. So what did Yehuda ben Shamua and his friends do about this decree? They went and they seeked advice from this very important and choshev woman, and she was a woman that all the great people of Rome would come visit her. So they figured she can give them good advice how to get rid of this decree. So she told them, I'll tell you what to do. Come and cry out, or sort of really protest. This is talking about going out into the streets and protest at night. So the Yidden went and they protested at night. And what did the Yidden say? The Yidden said to the Romans, Hey Shamayim, woe to the heavens. Are we not your brothers? Don't we have the same father? Don't we have the same mother? So the Mashaya explains what they were saying. Because the Yidden come from Yaakov and the Romans come from Esav, so they were saying Yaakov and Esav were brothers. They shared the same father and mother, Yitzchak and Rivka. So therefore, why are we different than any other nations? That you decree upon us, the Yidden, such difficult decrees. After the Yidden protested, so the Romans annulled the decree. And for that day, this was Chavches Adar, Asu Yom Tiv. They established this day to be a Yom Tiv. This is the story. Now, the Gemara is going to prove that when did this story happen? I mean, at least at this point, the Gemara assumes that this story happened after the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash. If you're going to say that after the Churban, the Megillas Tainus was annulled, if all the dates that were written already previously was all bottled already, how could it be that they're adding more dates to Megillas Tainus if the whole Megillas Tainus was bottled? So the Gemara says, wait a minute, maybe this also happened in the time when the Beis HaMikdash was still standing. If you'll argue and say, this story also happened while the Beis HaMikdash was still standing, that can't be. Because Yehuda ben Shamua, the story says about Yehuda ben Shamua that went to annul this decree. Talmidah shel Rab Meir. He's a student of Rab Meir. Rab Meir lived a few generations after the Churban. Rashi here makes the cheshbon. He was Kamadaitis after the Churban. Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai was at the generation of the Churban. Then you have his student, Rabbi Eliezer. and then his student was Rabbi Akiva, and then Rabbi Meir was a student of Rabbi Akiva. So that's like 4 or 5 generations after the Churban. How do we know that Yehuda ben Shamua was a student of Rabbi Meir? So we learned in the Braise or in the Mishnah, it says, if you go this over here, the Tanya, that Kli Zechuchis Shenikfu. If you have a glass keli that got a hole in it, and V'hitiv L'toichan Avar, and you melted lead into this hole in the glass keli in order to clog up the hole. So Rab Shimon ben Gamliel said, Yehuda ben Shamua metame mishum Rab Meir. Yehuda ben Shamua said in the name of Rab Meir that this would be tameh. Now, what exactly the pshat in this Gemara is? There's a few pshatim in the Gemara. There's a lengthy taistus on this. Rashi brings 2 pshatim. One pshat Rashi brings is that there's a gzeirim d'Rabbanan that a keli that's tameh, even if it breaks and then it gets put back together, or let's say if it was disassembled and then it's assembled back together. If it's made from metal or iron material, so then the tumah, if it had a tumah before it was disassembled or before it was broken, once it's assembled again, the previous tumah comes back. That's what it's talking about over here. So over here you have this kli zechuchis, it got a hole in it. The kli zechuchis had tumah before, and now it got a hole, and now you fixed it by clogging the hole with lead. So what Rab Meir is saying is that because you clogged it with this lead, which is considered to be a type of metal, so therefore the tumah that was on it before comes back. Even though it's mostly a glass keli, it's not a metal keli. But because that hole, you clog it, which is called the davar hamaimid, you clogged it up with this lead, that's enough that the gzeir of Chazal should apply, that it should become tummy again. And the Chachamim say that no, it's toy, since it's a glass keli, even though the hole is clogged up by this lead, but because it's mostly glass, the tumah won't come back. That's one pshat. Rashi brings another pshat that b'chlal, a glass keli, is not tamim min atayra. It's only tamim b'derabanan. So the question is, this glass keli that now the hole has been clogged up with lead, which is tamim min atayra, so is this glass keli now going to be tamim min atayra? Because it could only be a keli with clogging it up with this lead, or no, it's still going to be tamei only midirabanan because it's mostly glass. Okay, the details of this machlokes is not really the main point. The Gemara brought it here, but what do we see here? Yehuda ben Shamua is speaking in the name of Rab Meir, and that was much after the time of the Churban. So we see that Megillas Tainis was still used and still active after the time of the Churban. So the Gemara says, you're right, Tanoihi. So we'll have to say that this argument we had before, whether Megillas Tainis was bottled or not, it's a machlokes Tanoim, and the Gemara brings a clear braise. The Tanya we learned in the braise, Hayamim, Ha'elu, Haksuvim, b'Megillas Tainis. All these dates that they established as Yomim Tovim that are written in Megillas Tainis. So Bein Bizman Shebeis Hamikdash Kayam, this is relevant. We keep them both when the Beis Hamikdash was standing, and Bein Bizman Shein Beis Hamikdash Kayam, and even when it's not standing, Asurin. All those dates that are written that you shouldn't fast on those dates and so on, it's still relevant today. Divrei Rab Meir. That's Rab Meir's opinion. Rabbi Yossi says, Bizman Shebeis Hamikdash Kayam Asurin. When the Beis Hamikdash is standing, we keep them. They're still asur. Mipnei shesimchi lehem. Those dates bring them simcha. But when the Beis Hamikdash is not standing, mutarim, all those dates that nisim happened that are mentioned in Megillas Tainis, we don't keep them anymore. It's mutter to fast on them. Because it's something that happened in the past, and therefore now that the Beis Hamikdash is not standing, it doesn't bring a good feeling. It only brings a bad feeling that that was a miracle that happened then, but now the Beis Hamikdash is not standing. So we see here clearly in this braise that it's a machlokes between Rab Meir and Rabbi Yossi regarding Megillas Tainis. So the Gemara concludes the whole discussion. What's b'payil? The hilchase batlu. The halach is that Megillas Tainis is batlu. Then the Gemara says right away, v'hilchase loy batlu. The halach is that Megillas Tainis is not batlu. Frag the Gemara, kashia hilchase hilchase. It's a contradiction here. What the halach is? Loy kashia kan b'chaneke or purim kan b'shar yaimi. Regarding Chanukah and Purim, Chazal established those as Yomim Tovim. It's not just Megillas Tainis. Chazal Mamish established them as Yomim Tovim, so they're not considered to be just miracles of the past. Right? So the point really is, those Yomim Tovim that Chazal established as Yomim Tovim, Hayam Ha'ela Niskarim V'Nasim, the Gilui, the revelation, and the nest that happened in the past comes every year again, and therefore we keep it even today. You're not allowed to fast on Chanukah and Purim, and so on. Kam B'Shar Yomi, all those other dates that are mentioned there, since Chazal never established it as Yamim Tovim, they're great miracles that happened, but they're stories of the past, and it doesn't come again today, and therefore today we don't keep Megillus Tainus. Okay, going back now to the Mishnah. What did it say in the Mishnah? Al Elul mipnei Rosh Hashanah. For the month of Elul, they would send out shluchim of the Bezdin to notify people when they established a new month to know when Rosh Hashanah is. And then Val Tishrei mipnei Takanas HaMoedes. Then they sent out shluchim for the month of Tishrei for the other Yomim Tovim of Tishrei, Yom Kippur and Sukkot. Frag the Gemara, Kivin denaf kiloa Elul. Once the shluchim of Bezdin go out to tell us when Elul is, so at Tishrei lamaluhu. Why do they have to go out again for the month of Tishrei? If you know when the month of Elul is, you should know when Rosh Hashanah is, and then you should know when the Yomim Tovim are. Now the Gemara gives the obvious answer. If you argue and say, no, you can't know from Elul when Yom Kippur and Sukkot is going to be. Maybe Elul is going to have 30 days, and Rosh Hashanah is only on the 31st day, not on the 30th day. So you have to let people know regarding Yom Kippur and Sukkot. But the Gemara says that can't be, because V'ha'ama Rab Chinana bar Kahana. Rab Chinana bar Kahana said, Amarav, Mimais Ezra, from the times of Ezra, which is right at the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash, Ve'elech, from then going forward, Lo matzinu Elul Mobar. It never happened that Elul had 30 days. Elul was always 29 days. So therefore, we see that once you know when Elul is, so you know that Elul is 29 days, and now you know when Rosh Hashanah is, and you know when Yom Kippur is, you know when Sukkot is. Why do you have to send out shluchim for the other Yomim Tovim of Tishrei? So the Gemara explains, I'll tell you, no, this is what it means. Lo matzinu means the lo yitzterich. That the fact is that there was no need to make the Elul 30 days. Lo matzinu doesn't mean that they would never do this. Even if there would be a good reason, they would never make Elul 30 days. Lo matzinu means there was never, it so happens to be that in the history of those times, there never was a good reason to make Elul 30 days. But if there would be a good reason, then they would make Elul 30 days. Right? So therefore you could never know. You have to send out a shliach for the month of Tishrei. Possibly they will make Elul 30 days. Rashi here brings from the next blot in the Gemara, it's going to explain that sometimes you have to make Elul 30 days if, the Gemara says, if Yom Kippur is going to fall out on a Sunday or on a Friday, so you have Yom Kippur and Shabbos together. We don't want Yom Kippur to be together with Shabbos. And also we don't want Shabbos and Yom Tov to be together. In those times it was difficult with the food, to be able to prepare the food, or if a person passes away and then you have to wait to bury him 2 days. So therefore, if there was a need, they would make Elul 30 days. So therefore you have to send out a shliach, again, if it would be necessary, they would make Elul 30 days. So you have to send out a shliach to let everybody know what the story with Elul was. Frag the Gemara, but hamikalkol Rosh Hashanah. If you're going to make Elul a 30th day, so then doesn't it come out that people that are far away and are expecting Rosh Hashanah to be on the 30th day of Elul, like it is in most years? As we see from the time of Ezra, it was all the years Rosh Hashanah was on the 30th day. But now, if there's going to be a certain need and you're going to make Rosh Hashanah on the 31st day, but maybe there's a need over here, but for the people far away, it's going to ruin it for them. They're going to keep Rosh Hashanah on the wrong day. They're going to keep Rosh Hashanah on the 30th day of Elul, thinking that it was made like every year. So you might have a need here, but you're ruining it for everyone else Rosh Hashanah later. And sorry, that's far away, that is. So the Gemara answers, mutiv to kalkul Rosh Hashanah, it's better that there should be this problem with Rosh Hashanah, but v'lo yiskalkulu kulhu mayadais. But you shouldn't have a problem with the Yomim Tovim afterwards, Yom Kippur or Sukkot, when it comes out together with a Shabbos. That's a bigger problem. So it is possible that they made Rosh Hashanah an extra day. So therefore, you have to send out shluchim to notify people about this for Tishrei, let them know if they made Elul an extra day or not. And the Gemara brings a raya from the lashon of our Mishnah. Dekenami, this point can be proven from the language in the Mishnah. What does it say in the Mishnah? The Ktani al Tishrei. They sent out shluchim for Tishrei. What does the Mishnah say? Mipnei takona samoyedes. So because to be misakin, to have the Yomim Tovim should be done properly. So what's the diak over here? It doesn't say mipnei hamayadais. It says mipnei takonis hamayadais. Meaning, because to know that the Yom Tovim should be made on the right day. Shouldn't be together with Shabbos. So in order to let people know whether they made an extra day for Elul because of takonis hamayadais, that's why they had to send out shluchim. That's what you see from the Lashon of the Mishnah. Shema Mina, this proves this point, that's why they had to send out the shluchim for Tishrei.
So they sent out the shluchim for Tishrei, and what happened? The guys made already Rosh Hashanah.
For Rosh Hashanah it was too late, correct. Oh, okay. And I explained then that Machlokes Rashi and Taisus in the Mishnah. And according to Rashi, they just kept Rosh Hashanah one day, and they might have gotten the wrong day. According to Taisus, they had to keep 2 days, for that reason, Rosh Hashanah. They always kept 2 days. Yeah. Weiter sagt the Gemara, the next thing it said in the Mishnah, Val Kislev mipnei Chanukah. In Kislev, you send out shluchim for Chanukah, Val Adam mipnei Purim. And Adar to know when Purim is. So the Gemara now says, wait, there could be a Shana Mu'beres, like this year. V'ilu nisabra Shana, but how about a situation when the year became a Shana Mu'beres? And what the Gemara is speaking about is, after the first Adar came in, they already sent out shluchim for Adar, and they thought it's just one Adar, and then afterwards Bezdin decides, wait, we're going to make a second Adar. So what's if that happens? So Yoitzin Afal Adar Sheni, Mipnei Purim, so then you already sent out shluchim for the first Adar, but now you decided to make it a Shana Mu'beres and there's a second Adar. So you would have to send out shluchim for the Purim that's in the second Adar, like Katani. That it doesn't say in our Mishnah. Why doesn't our Mishnah say that in the event you already sent out the shluchim for the first Adar, you're going to have to send out for the second Adar? So the Gemara Masnisin the law Rabbi. It seems like our mission that skips that is not following Rabbi's opinion. The Tanya says, Rabbi says, Imnis Abra Shana, if after the fact they already sent out shluchim for one Adar, then they decided to make a second Adar, Yaitzan Afal Adar Sheinim Mipnei Purim. They have to go out for the second Adar even for Purim. And in our mission it's mashma that even if they made a Shana Mu'beres, they sent out the shluchim for the first Adar, and that's good enough. They don't have to send out a shlich for the second Adar. Why not? So the Gemara explains, Leime Bahaka Miflgi. Shall we say they're arguing in the following machlekes here? The Mar Savar. So one opinion over here is Kol mitzvahs hanoiges b'sheni noiges b'rishon. All of the mitzvahs of Purim that you have in Adar Sheni on Purim, you also have in Adar Rishon Purim. And what this really means is you can keep Purim in Adar Sheni, or you can keep Purim in Adar Rishon. Once you kept Purim in Adar Rishon, you don't have to keep Purim again in Adar Sheni. So therefore, once you sent the shluchim for Adar Rishon, you don't have to send them again out for Adar Sheni. That would be the opinion of our Mishnah. Omar Sarva, but Rabbi's opinion is, Kol mitzvahs hanoiges b'sheni, ein noiges b'rishon. You have Purim only in the second Adar, but not in the first Adar. So you have to send out the shluchim for the second Adar. That's the only month when Purim is kept. That's what it seems like the machlokes is.
They kept it already.
Huh?
But they kept it already.
Correct, but according to Rabbi, what they kept in the first Adar doesn't count, because Purim is only in Adar Sheni, so they have to keep it again. The Tan of our Mishnah holds, once you keep it the first Adar, it's good. You don't have to keep it again. So the Gemara says, no, that's not the basis of their argument. Loi, the Kulam, everybody agrees, mitzvah sanoiges b'sheni, ein noiges b'rishon. The mitzvah of Purim that's in the second Adar is not in the first Adar. Right? Like we paskin, like the halach is, Purim is in Adar Sheni, and not in the first Adar. And for Hacha, what are they arguing about over here? Be'ibur shana kamiflagi. When it comes over here to the halacha of the Shana Me'oberes, so they're arguing about this extra month. How is this established? Do we know what the amount of days is going to be or not? The Gemara brings the Braisa. The Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Kama Ibur Shana. That extra month that you add, when you make it a Shana Me'oberes, how many days is that extra month? So the Tanna Kama says, Lamed Yom. That extra day, that extra month that is 30 days. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, no, it's a month. It's not necessarily 30 days. Okay, so now what's the Gemara explaining here? That if it's 30 days, that means you always know that the first Adar is 30 days. So you don't have to send any shluchim for the second Adar, because you know the first Adar is always going to be 30 days. So the Chodesh Adar Sheni is always going to be in the 31st day. But according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel that says Chodesh, so Chodesh means you have another month, but you don't know how many days it's going to be. So you have to send out a shliach for that. But the Gemara now explains this. Now, if you know that it's 30 days, so everybody knows that the first Adar is 30 days, so you don't have to send out a shliach for the second Adar, because you know that it's going to be in the 31st day. Chodesh nami yadi. Chodesh, at this point, the Gemara thinks that what's the argument here? Chodesh means that it's always 29 days. Always 29. So Chodesh also, if it's always 29 days, so you also know when Rosh Chodesh Adar Sheni is going to be. So why do you have to send out shluchim for that? So the Gemara answers, no, that's not the pshat. Rav Papa explains, Man do Oma Chodesh, the one that says that the added Adar, the Adar Rishon, is Chodesh, what he meant to say is, Ratzah Chodesh. If you want, then it's a Chodesh, it's 29 days, and Ratzah Shloshim. If you want, it's 30 days. It could be either 29 days or 30 days. So therefore you have to send out shluchim for the second Adar because it's not something which is established. Our Gemara is very interesting, by the way, because don't forget, we're talking over here about the time of the Beis HaMikdash, or even after, when they were Mekadosh the Chodesh of Pir Re'iyah, which means when they saw the new moon. So this whole discussion in the Gemara over here, whether the added month of Adar is 29 days or 30 days, is it established? It depends on the witnesses. It depends when they saw the moon. No, that's always the reason why there's a suffix about how many days the new month is going to be. But in our Gemara, it's mashma that even without witnesses, if Bezdin wants, they can come and establish the new month. If they decide to be Mekadosh the Chodesh without witnesses, they can do so. Usually they do it with witnesses that see the new moon, but when it came to the added Adar, and Hashanah Mu'beres, there was, at least according to one opinion, there was a set time. Bezdin decided 30 days, and that's what they did. The Mechas Chinuch pointed out from this Gemara. Could be, right. Lo Yadu Rosh and things like that, maybe. Or I'm not sure if that was in the time. Right. Right, that they established, that they changed the day and so on. Yeah, okay, correct. Okay, now the Gemara brings a few opinions about this regarding the added Adar. What exactly was the, how many days did they establish for the added Adar? So the Gemara brings, hey, the Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Mishum Kol Kedisha Yerushalayim. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said witness in the name of the holy congregation of Yerushalayim. Al Shnei Adarim, regarding the 2 months of Adar in Hashanah Mu'beres. That they make the new month on the 30th day. In other words, both of these months of Adar only have 29 days. So the Gemara now says, Lememre, shall we say, the Chaserin of Dinan, that the 2 months of Adar are always 29 days. Malay and Loy of Dinan, it's not full 30 days. So if that's what he holds, so this excludes from another opinion what Rav Nachman Bar Chisda said. Because he said, he said in the names of the last Nevi'im, Chagi Zechariah Malachi, regarding the 2 Adarim, if you want, and you want to establish them both to be full 30 days, Eisen, you can make it that way. Shneim Chesedim, to make them both 29 days. Oisim, you could do it that way as well. Echad Malev, Echad Chaser, Oisim. And if you want to make one 30 days and one 29 days, you could also do that as well. And V'kach, Choyenoyegim B'Goyla. This is what they did in Golus, 129 days and 130 days. Mishum Rabbeinu Amru, in the name of Rabbeinu, which refers to Rav, they said, L'oilam Echad Malev, Echad Chaser. Always one was 30 days, which is the first Adar, and the second Adar was 29 days, until you find out, when they come from Eretz Yisrael, and they find out how it was established, what the time it was established. At the first Adar they established, this was the minig. They always established the first Adar 30 days, and the second Adar 29 days. Okay, the Gemara is going to bring another opinion. This is a whole continued discussion. We'll see you tomorrow.